Hi, this is Eric Thomas on behalf of ODOT's Office of CAD and Mapping Services, and in this video I'm going to talk about an ODOT application that can be used to manage all of the sheet attributes for the various plan sheet types that are available in ODOT's Sheet Cell library. So this is available with the January 2015 update to ODOTcadd Standards, and this is a significant change to the sheet cells in the way they work. So the ODOT Sheet Cell library has been modified to use MicroStation tag elements in place of data entry regions. And there are some pros and cons to this. The pros are that this provides future compatibility for ProjectWise. ODOT is currently moving towards a ProjectWise implementation internally, so by using tags in the sheet cells, ODOT will be prepared to manage the sheet attributes through ProjectWise. Tags are user assignable, so the previous methods that ODOT had used for some sheet numbering, those were not user assignable values. They were done programmatically. So the tag can be assigned by a user and then accessed by a user or accessed programmatically. We're no longer limited to accessing specific sheet elements based on symbology. So in the past, ODOT had color-coded some of the attributes in the sheets themselves, and they had used 10 or 11 different colors to identify these. And as you look at ODOT's different sheet types, there's 40 or so different attributes that are in all the different sheet types. So using tags, we're now able to support every single attribute that's in every single sheet type. The cons to this are the tags are assigned to the cell header. So when I place a sheet cell, those tags are part of the cell. They are not part of the individual elements that make up the cell. So if I drop the cell, I will lose the tags. And that's a definite con and something that we'll have to work with and find ways to manage as we move forward with this. Now, these new sheet cells in the ODOT Sheets Cell library are not compatible with existing sheet management applications. So the applications that we've been using for numbering, subset numbering, and cross-referencing, those will no longer work because they use the data entry regions and they looked for data entry regions of a specific color. So we have some new applications to replace the older applications. So there are 3 new applications available: the ODOT Sheet Manager and Crosssection Sheet Manager. I'll demonstrate in this video, and I'll demonstrate sheet cross-referencing in a separate video. Now, the Sheet Manager is a new application, and as I stated before, it's used to manage all of the sheet title block attributes for the new cells. This replaces 4 different applications. So if you've used the BR Sheet Info, ODOT Sheet Numbering, Subset Sheet Numbering, or Supplemental Description apps in the past, these are no longer supported for the ODOTcadd Standards and are now replaced. And again, the ODOT Sheet Manager is not compatible with old sheet cells. So your existing projects, you're going to want to complete those using the ODOT V8iCAD standards, and this is to be used on new projects moving forward. Now, the Cross-Section Sheet Manager is a specialized application that does add a few things that are unique for cross-sections. So this application did exist before, and it's been updated to use the tag elements. And again, it's not compatible with old cells using data entry regions. I've added support for multiple sheet models with this, and it replaces that ODOTcadd Sheet Labels Visual Basic application that was previously available. And again, this does provide labeling options that are unique to cross-sections. Now, the Sheet Manager still handles cross-section sheets. This just does some additional things specifically for cross-sections that the general Sheet Manager does not handle. And the sheet cross-referencing application has been replaced with a new application. And again, this is using the new tags, so it's not compatible with the old cross-references that were defined using the old cells using data entry regions. And the new application replaces 3 separate ODOT applications, and I will demonstrate that in its own video. So with that introduction, let's go ahead and get into MicroStation and take a look at the Sheet Manager and the Cross-Section Sheet Manager. So I have MicroStation open, and I'm in a file with an ODOT plan and profile sheet, and I'm going to zoom in on the title area of the sheet. And you can see I don't have any data entry region here for the county route and section, or for the subtitle of the sheet itself, and the calculated checked areas also do not have any data entry regions. What I've got is some active points at the location where this text is inserted, and these points have been tagged with a MicroStation tag element. And as I said in the PowerPoint, the tags are actually associated with the cell header. So when I go ahead to edit this, it's going to be editing the cell header itself to get the tag information. So I have MicroStation's tag command here, and there's command to assign or attach tags, edit tags, review their values, change them, or remove them. So I'm going to use the edit tags option, and I'll just click this cell anywhere, and it's going to show me the tags that are associated with that. And unfortunately, the MicroStation dialog for this is not resizable. So some of the tag names are a little long, and if you float your cursor over it, you should be able to see the entire tag name. Okay, so starting with the county route section, I'll go ahead and pick that tag, and it's going to show me that this is a tag with the name of text. It doesn't have a value assigned, and it is being displayed. So I'll type in here AAA-123-1.23 for my county route section and accept that, and I can see it's been assigned to the cell at the proper location. So there's also tags for the sheet number and total number of sheets, and these do have a value. So the initial value is 0 on that. And same with the scale bar information. These are all tags that can be handled through the Sheet Manager, and they currently have an initial value of 0. So let's go ahead and look at the Sheet Manager tool and how we can use that to manage the different tags in the sheet itself. From the ODOT menu, under Sheet Management, I'll choose Sheet Manager. Now the application is defaulting to the design folder for my project. So I'm using a MicroStation project configuration file, and the project configuration file has a variable defined, the UStation project data variable, that tells MicroStation where the root folder is for the project. So if the project PCF and the UStation project data variable is not defined, you'll have to use the Browse button to browse and select the design folder for the project. So once the project's been selected, the discipline dropdown is populated by any discipline-specific folders it finds in the design folder itself. So this is just a list of folders that have a Sheets folder under it, and they may or may not have files in them. For example, if I go to Landscape, there are no files in the Landscape Sheets folder. So I'll go back up to Drainage because I did have some files there under Design in the Drainage folder. And if I click on a file, it's going to read that file itself to look for any ODOT sheet cells that are in the file. And if it does find one, it'll tell me down at the bottom the name of the cell that it found, and it also tell me how many sheet models it found in that file. So over on the right, I've got the properties for that particular file and that particular cell that it found. So the title and comments properties are actually file properties. They're MicroStation under, if I choose File and choose Properties, under Summary, there's the title and there's the comments. So those are MicroStation file properties. And this is a listing of any sheet models it found in the file. And then for the specific cell that it found, these are the various attributes in that sheet cell that can be managed. So for example, if my drainage schematic was sheet number 58, I could assign it sheet number. Maybe there's 120 total sheets in the plan. And I'll just give a county route and section here. There's the sheet title itself, schematic plan. It could be edited if I needed to. The calculated value and the checked value can be entered. And notice this sheet has a scale bar and the values have not been assigned. If I click on the annotation scale, it will take that and assign them appropriately for the scale bar. And the last thing is the application is looking in the file for a north arrow, and it did not find one. So I can have it place the ODOT arrow cell that's just called narrow. So I've defined my attributes for this file, and I'll go ahead and write those to the file. And I can see over here that it's showing me the number 58, which is my sheet number, and it's showing it to me twice. So what's listed here is if the file had multiple models and each model had a sheet, I should say if the file had multiple sheet models and each file had a sheet, it would show me the first number and the last number found in that particular file. So for example, I'll click on Drainage Notes, and it tells me it found the cell Gen Note and that there are 2 sheet models. And if I look at the drop-down list of models, I'll see Sheet and Sheet 2. So I can manage each of those individually. So maybe that note is page 59. and I can fill out the rest of the attributes. I'll just go ahead and write that, and you can see 59 updates over in my list. And I'll go to the second sheet model, and that's maybe sheet 60. And I'll write that. And you can see the last page number has been updated for this particular file because it had 2 sheet models. So let's go ahead and assign a few more numbers here. Here's a drainage channel cross sections, and there's 3 models there, so let's just say that's 61. I'll write that. This is 62. We'll write that, and this is 63. I'll say the sub-summary is sheet 64, and the quantity table is sheet 65. Now, those may or may not be the proper order for these. I'm just assigning some numbers to illustrate that I can sort the files by the name of the file itself or by the number. So I'm sorting by the starting page number here. Okay, the refresh button just updates the list, rereads the files, and repopulates the values here. Okay, so I have not mentioned the modes, and the default is a single file mode, and that's what I've been doing, is adding a single file and a single model at a time within that file. There are 4 other modes. So let's take a look at the MultiFile mode. MultiFile allows me to edit common parameters that are common to multiple sheet types, and I can select individually which particular files I'd like to edit, or I can select them all. And let's say the total number of sheets was, I don't remember what I said before, let's say it's 160. And the county route section is AAA-123-1.23, and this is calculated by ABC and checked by DEF. So I'll go ahead and write that, and that is written to all the files and all the models that it's found in each file. So to verify that, I'll go back to SingleFile mode and click on my drainage schematic, and I can see now my total number of sheets of 160, and my calculated and checked has changed. If I go to drainage notes, I can see that it's reflected there, and I'll go to the second model, and I can see it was also written there. So that's the MultiFile mode, and it's just a limited number of parameters that's common to multiple sheets. So I'm going to go back to SingleFile mode and talk about a few more things on that particular mode. So in SingleFile mode, when I select a file and select a model, I can write attributes to that, and we've demonstrated that. If I double click on the file in the list, it will open that file, and it will open that specific model in the file. So the file is open here, and I can look and verify that the attributes have been written to the file. So I just wanted to show you that quickly, that you can easily go to a file. Now I can make edits to a file that I'm in. I don't have to be in a different file to do that. So it really doesn't matter what file I'm in when I'm working with this. As long as I have write access to the file, I can write attributes to that. Now, some of the sheet types have a lot of attributes. So let's take a look at a couple of different sheet types. So the geotechnical sheets have some of their own specialized attributes that are defined in their particular cells. And you can see there's some different parameters here that we weren't seeing before. The right-of-way sheets also have some unique parameters that are specific to right-of-way. And the structures files also have some unique attributes, unique to their specific cells. One other thing I want to mention, and I'll go to the roadway folder to demonstrate this, is if no cell is found in the file, it will show you a sheet number of -1. And when I click on that, it beeps and it tells me down here that there was no sheet cell found in the model. So that's the rest of the information on SingleFile mode. Now let's take a look at the Excel output modes. So there's 3 different Excel modes. First one is output, second output all, and third one is input to read information back in. Output allows me to output information for the selected discipline. So if I'm the roadway designer and only working on the roadway files, I can go ahead and write that information to Excel. And you can see it's populating an Excel file here. And what it's done for me is it's read all the files under the roadway sheets folder and extracted all the information and written it to an Excel file. and this is just written in memory. If I want to keep this, I need to save it. And I can see the columns are defined at the top with a header. So the first column is the file name with the full path. The second is the model name and then the cell found within that. And the rest of these are just the values associated with the file title and comments properties and then the sheet cell itself. Now the values here are not linked in any way. This is just reading it, writing it to Excel, and it can be read back in. So we're not using any Excel object linking or embedding with this. It's just a read-write type operation. So for the specific cell type, here's the schematic cell, I can see the various properties and their value. So sheet number is a valid property for the schematic cell, but it doesn't have a value assigned. The sheet total is currently 200. Subset number and subset total are not relevant to a schematic sheet. And then there's the county route section, sheet title, and there are no subtitles, calculated and checked. And then here's parameters for right-of-way and some parameters for maybe geotechnical sheets and bridge sheets. The annotation scale value is listed here, and the current scale bar values are listed. And there's no automated way to populate these in the Excel file at this time. So that's just, if you want to fill those out here, you'd have to type them in manually. And it also does tell me that a north arrow was not found, but when I read this back in, there's no automated way currently for it to place north arrows. So the second cell, it says not applicable for a north arrow in the scale bar, so the second cell, whatever it is, does not use a scale bar or a north arrow. It's a super elevation sheet. So if I want to use this to assign values, maybe the total number of sheets is going to be 193. I can copy that and just paste that in. Now here's a particular sheet or file where no cell was found, so everything is not applicable for that particular one. So I'll just paste this in, and while I'm here I'll go ahead and use the county route and section, paste that in. Missed one there. And I'm going to number these. Title sheet is already 1, so schematic will be sheet 2. We'll make my notes sheet 3, 4, and 5. General summary 6 and 7, and etc. I could number all these. I didn't do those in the proper order, but that's okay. Oops, I should make that 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so you can number here, and then once it's numbered, if some of them have numbers and some of them don't, I can sort this file however I'd like. Since this is not linked to MicroStation, I'm open to do any type of sorting I wanted. So if I want to sort by file name, or sort by sheet number, or subset number, or any parameter, you can go ahead and do some sorting there. So I've made some changes. I'm going to save these changes. And I'm going to go to my project data folder on my C drive. And go to the folder for this project. And I'm going to store this under design, under roadway engineering data. And there's a file I had previously stored. I'm just going to overwrite that one. You can name it whatever you'd like. So that's the first Excel mode output. And the Excel output all is identical. The only difference is it's outputting the sheet files for the entire project. So for every discipline it finds, it's going to output all the information. The third mode for Excel is the input mode. And in that mode, I'm choosing the file, and I had previously selected the file, but there's a browse button that you can go out and browse for it. And then once it's selected, I can tell it to read that file. So it'll read the information and write it to each of the files, and it's done already. And when it's done, if there were any errors encountered, it will give you a report. So here's an error. This particular file in this model, it did not find a cell. I can save that error report if I'd like to. So if it finds things like a file was locked because someone else was in it, and it couldn't open that to write information to it, it'll tell you the file was read-only. If maybe someone had deleted the cell in a file or dropped status on it and it could no longer find the cell, it would tell you there was no cell there. If someone renames the model, it's looking for a file and a model and then a cell within that model. So if someone renames the model, it will not be able to find that. So now that I read the information in, I'm going to go back to SingleFile Mode and just click on a file, and I can see that information's been written, but my list is still reading zeros. So I do need to refresh the list for it to go out and reread the files in order to get those page numbers. So I can see some numbers, sorting by numbers here, that information has been assigned. The county route section is also assigned. Now, the last thing I want to mention is on some of the cells, you are going to need to edit information in the cell. I'm going to use the title sheet as an example of that. So I'll double click on the roadway title sheet file and open that file. And I'm going to go ahead and just close the sheet manager. So this particular cell has been modified a bit in ODOT cell library because we know that the interior of this cell is something that you may want to edit. So what we've done is taken a few of the cells and split them up to a border and an interior portion. So I could drop status on this interior, and you can see the cell name there is title1_interior. So I could drop status on that in order to edit any of this information I might need to edit, leaving the border intact. So just to take a quick look at that, if I go to Element and Cells, and in my ODOT Sheet Cell library, I'll go down to Title 1, and I can see the Title 1 cell, and it's just the border itself and Title 1 interior. So as we work with this and move forward, we're going to identify some more cells that will be commonly edited, and we'll split those into a border and an interior portion so they can be placed as two separate cells on top of each other. And if you need to edit the interior contents, you can just drop that cell and edit those values. The last thing I'm going to cover in this video is a cross-section sheet manager application. And I'm in a different project, and I'm going to cut some GeoPack cross-section sheets. And I've got the sheet composition tool open, and under sheet design file, I'm going to detach any existing sheets before I process because I'd ran this previously, but I'm going to use the one sheet per model option. And this is a change from what ODOT has recommended in the past. In the past, we've recommended all sheets in the active model, and now we're going to recommend one sheet per model. So I'll go ahead and lay out the sheets, and then after it's done, I'll pull up the cross-section sheet manager and go over the tools that can be used there to manage the sheet attributes. So I've processed my cross-section sheets with GeoPack, and I'm in the cross-section sheet design file. And let's take a look at the models that are in the file. So I have the design and sheet model that are the default in ODOT seed files, and then I have the sheet models that were created using the GeoPack process. So I'll go ahead and open that first sheet model, and I can see the cross-section sheets that were clipped. And I don't need the empty sheet model that is in the MicroStation seed file or the ODOT seed file. So I'm going to select that and delete that model. So looking at my models, I have the ODOT cell, and I'm going to use the ODOTcadd SheetManager to clean up some of the graphics and manage the sheet attributes. So from the ODOT menu, under Sheet Management, I'll choose the Access Sheet Manager option. And it's got a drop-down list of the different ODOT cells, so I need to choose which cell I'm working with, and the default is Cross, which is the cell that I have placed for my sheets. And I've got various options for this, and I can turn the options on or off using the all on and all off. So I'm going to annotate the station-to-station limits, and the way this works is it's looking for reference attachments, and in the reference attachments it's looking for the GeoPack control cell, and it's going to assume the first one it finds is the lowest station and the last one it finds is the highest. So it's going to read the values from the GeoPack cell in order to get the station-to-station limits and annotate that in there. There's an option to clear overlapping offset labels. So when I clip my sheets with GeoPack, it labels some offsets at the bottom, and I had a problem there with my symbology, but we'll ignore that. And this one overlaps into my column for my seeding quantities, and over here there's one that overlaps into my earthwork quantities. So for every sheet, it's going to clear those out with this option checked on. Any text it finds in the columns, it's going to add those and put the total into volume for seeding and earthwork with these checked on. Turn off any unnecessary cross-section levels. We'll turn off levels related to cross-section graphics. When I process using criteria on this one, there's some graphics that don't need to be shown on the plan, so this will turn those off. and that will need to be updated in the future when we get into some open roads information and clipping cross sections from open roads data. Turn off the minor grid lines. If I'd like to turn those off, I can do so. The route name can be added here. So this is the sample training project, so that's State Route 185, and that is appended to the cross sections label here. County route and section for this is again the sample project. So I'll go ahead and enter that information, calculated by, checked by, and I can do some sheet numbering. And this is going to increment the sheet numbers as it goes through and processes each model. So if the first sheet were maybe sheet 150, it will increment those, and maybe there's 200 total sheets in this plan set. So I'll go ahead and process this. And it's going to flip through each model and apply all the different things it needs to do. And then when it's done, I'll take a look at one of the models. Okay, the processing is complete, and it did take a few minutes to run through on this file. There were 28 models in this file, so there's a lot of cross sections for it to manage as it goes through and processes. So just to take a look at everything here, I'll zoom in a bit, and I can see the attributes that have been entered and the values for the station range, the route name appended, and checked and calculated were assigned there. The minor grids are turned off. Some unnecessary levels from criteria are turned off. And I do see that it did not add the totals, and that's because the totals are actually referenced in and they're not in the file itself. So that's something that maybe I need to modify in a future update, is to look at the references to grab text that falls in there in order to add that up and give you some totals at the bottom of the sheet. So I'll look at that in an update. Now, just one last thing. I'll go ahead and close the Sheet Manager, and I'll open the generic Sheet Manager. And just to illustrate that the information is readable here, I'll click on the cross-section file, and I can see each of the models, and I can go through there and see all the values for each individual model. The last thing I should mention is this is using the MicroStation sheet border that's found in the model properties, and that's been turned on for the sheet in each model. And the other thing I should mention is that in the model properties themselves, the sheet number is populated. So whatever the number is for the particular sheet in the model, the program is writing that information there. And that's true of both programs, the General Sheet Manager and the Cross-Section Sheet Manager. So with that, I will bring this video to a close. If you have any questions or problems with the sheet management applications, if you have any suggestions for the cells themselves and how we may need to break some of them up to be a separate border and a separate interior portion, you can just contact the ODOT Office of CAD and Mapping Services using the contact form on their website.